just got to Jakarta in Indonesia and we're gonna be traveling here for the next 3 weeks and I'm so excited. We've never actually done any sort of trip like this. Like, we have a backpack and the flight, I have to admit, was mostly just long. We had a direct flight from Amsterdam into Jakarta and it was like 14 hours. And honestly, it just took ages. And I usually always sleep on like trains, buses, flights. And I barely had any sleep the night before, so I figured I was just gonna pass out and sleep like most of the flight. But in the end, I barely slept. So I'm very exhausted right now and we still have quite a long travel day ahead because we're not actually gonna stay in Jakarta. We're gonna take the train this afternoon to go to Malang, which is also in Java, because that's gonna be our base for our Java tour trip kind of thing. So really excited for that, but we still have a 12-hour train ride later today. So we don't really have a lot of plans. We're gonna go for a coffee, maybe walk around a little bit.
Dit is echt denk ik een van de lekkerste koffies ooit.
We arrived in our hostel at like 4 a.m. last night and the train ride was actually quite good. Just very long, but the seats were pretty comfortable and we were able to get a little bit of sleep, but not very much. So we're still kind of running on like high adrenaline. I also really hope you can hear me because the traffic here is so loud, but we still woke up. We kind of tried to sleep in a little bit because we have a 3-day tour tomorrow that we still want to rest up for, but we also don't want to waste the day. Anyways, we went to our hostel to sleep and we're actually staying at a hostel, which I didn't think we would do because I feel like usually if you go traveling with like a partner, you wouldn't necessarily stay in a dorm room. But we figured for this night, these 2 nights actually, because we're leaving at like 6 a.m. for the tour tomorrow, we figured it'd just be easy to just stay in a simple dorm. It's not very expensive. It's actually not expensive at all. So we just figured it'd be easier. And honestly, so far it's quite good. So we're now gonna go to the colorful village here because I feel like that's like the one touristy thing that you have to see when you're in Milan. And then I think we're gonna go head to like a pool somewhere so we can kind of chill and rest up for tomorrow. is almost 2 a.m. and we are about to go leave for Mount Bromo. I'm so excited. Yesterday we went to the waterfall, which was stunning, and then today we have Mount Bromo, which is an active volcano, and I just really hope the weather is gonna be good, like the sunrise is gonna be pretty and that we can actually see the mountain. Hopefully it's not gonna be too cloudy. I do feel like my body is kind of fighting a jet lag because I just simply can't seem to fall asleep. Like every time we're supposed to go to sleep, I just cannot sleep. So I had like 2 hours of sleep at most, and even for the past like 6 days I've literally not really had more than like 4 to 5 hours of sleep, which for me is honestly quite difficult. But they're gonna drive us with some jeeps. We're now at our little homestay where we stayed for the night. We already packed our things because after the volcano we're gonna get back here for a simple breakfast, and then we're already gonna go drive to the next and last location. I think my sleep's not really gonna get much better because tonight for Mount Ijen tomorrow we actually have to leave earlier. Like we're leaving the hotel at midnight, so we have to wake up already for the next day like before midnight, which is crazy. But we're both really excited and hopefully the weather and everything's gonna be good. They are saying it's gonna be really cold, so we're wearing our warmest clothes and I'm gonna wear my sweater, and then we can still rent like this big winter coat there or blankets if we get cold, so that'll be fine. But I honestly don't really know what to expect. We're gonna go leave now and get us in the jeeps.
Not bad.
Second hotel, and this one is actually much nicer than the first one because the first one was a homestay, which wasn't bad, but this one has a pool which we didn't even go in, but it just looks a lot nicer. I hope you can hear me because Job is taking a shower, but we just took a shower and I washed my hair for the first time here, and it honestly has been feeling so like dry and stiff all day. Like even in my slick back it just didn't feel good, so I hope my hair oil is kind of gonna save me. But I think today it was mostly from all of the dust and stuff, but Mount Bromo was actually stunning. Like it was so beautiful. I'm so glad we did it, and now we're here for the night. It's currently like 4 p.m. We have dinner from 5 to 6 and then we're supposed to go to bed because we leave to hike Mount Ijen at midnight. So we gotta be at the front of the hotel at like 11:55 I think. So I am honestly at this point getting so nervous because I have obviously landed on Mount Ijen TikTok where everyone is saying that it's so dangerous and scary and hard, and I am so nervous. My fitness levels are a little bit out of the window, so I'm just really nervous. I know I'm gonna do it because even though I'm scared, I know that it will be worth it because we have been excited about this hike for a while, and I am very, very excited, and I think it's just brave if you're even going to hike. I'm happy about it, but right now I'm a little bit nervous. It might also be because of the lack of sleep, because I literally haven't had a proper night of sleep in like a week, which think I've said this already, but I just need my sleep and I'm so exhausted, which is why we're just going to bed straight after dinner. We have to get some snacks because we obviously leave at midnight and breakfast isn't until like 7:30, I think. You do get some fried banana at the base camp, which I didn't really know what I should expect from, but honestly, surprisingly good. I dipped it into my hot chocolate, which was actually really nice. So yeah, it's kind of a mess now because I've laid out the things that I need before we leave, and then we have our backpacks and just a few things that we still need to organize with what we need to bring, what we're gonna bring into the van, because we're going straight from Ijen to Bali, and then our driver is gonna bring us to the harbor where we take the ferry to Bali, and then we get picked up and they're gonna bring us to Ubud in Bali. So very excited about that, very excited to have a proper night of sleep, hopefully. Yeah, I'm gonna fill you guys in on the details later because I have a lot to say about this, but right now I'm just a little bit tired and I also just want to prepare and rest up. So later in this video I will give you a little bit of a briefing about the tour we did, what you need to know, and our experience, I guess. I'm finally showered and in my comfy outfit with these black linen pants from H&M, my new Birkenstocks, which I'm so happy with. Oh, my ankles are so white, oh my god. And then this tank top from ASOS, which is very comfy. So we're gonna quickly go grab some snacks, head to dinner, and then head to bed. Hi guys, it's a couple weeks later. We're obviously back home and I just thought this video needed a little bit of like a debrief so you actually know what this tour includes, where you can book it, and just things like that, because I feel like a lot of the time you'll see a video like this and then you're like, okay, but where do I actually find this tour? So I just made myself an iced coffee and I just thought I'd kind of take you along in what we did and just the whole experience. I feel like I probably shouldn't have written down a list of the things I want to talk about, but I'm just gonna do it like out of my mind and just think about everything that I would personally want to know if I would want to do this. So basically, let's take a sip first. That's really good. Okay, so basically this East Java tour is a 3-day tour, like a guided tour. I feel like there are a lot of different tours and like a lot of different organizations doing this tour. We booked it through Mador Hostel in Malang. I feel like this is also the most popular tour. This is the one that I would constantly see on TikTok of people recommending this tour, and we did look at a few others, but this one had like the best opportunities because it also gives you a drop off in Bali and just like a few details that we were like, okay, let's just book this one. So we booked it through Mador Hostel and you can stay in either Malang or Surabaya, I think, for the pickup. But obviously if you stay in Surabaya, you have to be in Malang when we leave. So you get picked up in Surabaya at like 4 or 5 a.m, which is not ideal. So my recommendation would be to stay in Malang. I have to admit, we didn't really feel like there was a lot to do in Malang. So I would honestly just go for one night just to have that as your base for this tour. We arrived at like the middle of the night from Jakarta and then did one day in Malang, and then the next morning at like 6 you get picked up. So I feel like that was pretty good. You just don't need that much time in Malang, to be honest. And so regarding the costs of the tour, I think, I don't remember it exactly, but I think it was 220 euros for 2 people. So it was like around 110 euros each, which I feel like is not a lot because this literally includes everything except for snacks and tips. I will get into the snacks later, but basically this included like dinner, lunch, breakfast. You gotta accept that not all the food will be amazing because obviously they're also just doing like the most simple and probably cheapest they can do. But honestly, I thought it was pretty good, but you don't expect that much. And also from the accommodation, because it includes 2 nights, like 1 night in a homestay in Bromo and then 1 night in a hotel close to Ijen. Especially for the homestay, you just have to not expect like luxury because it's literally just a homestay. Also, a tip that I would have for you for this, if you obviously bring a backpack or a suitcase, whatever you're bringing, make sure that everything you need is just at the top of your, for example, we brought a backpack. Make sure that everything you need for these 3 days is kind of at the top of your backpack so you don't have to unpack and pack your backpack the entire time, because every time you will get to an accommodation you literally have to pack like again a few hours later. So honestly for us it was nice to be a little bit prepared and kind of pack so you have everything that you need just close by and you don't need to unpack every single little thing. That's just a little tip I had. But honestly this price included pretty much everything, and after the tour they drop you off. Well, they can drop you off in Bali. Obviously if you want to go back to Malang you can. If you want to get dropped off anywhere else you can just see, because we had this group chat and literally like 80%, maybe even 90% of our group chat was going to Ubud in Bali after the tour. So basically they drop you off at the ferry. They also get you a ferry ticket and then you take the ferry, you get to Bali, and then there's this other van that will take you to either Ubud, Canggu. Honestly, I think wherever you want to go, they do have kind of a solution, because it just depends on how many people want to go to a specific location. Because for example, if you'd had like an entire van that wanted to go to like Uluwatu, for example, they probably would have done that. You just have to pay a little bit extra because it's obviously like complete other opposite than the harbor. But that was really nice because then you also don't need to get like transportation or anything like that for that. And basically for the rest of the tour you're just sitting in the same van like all day every day. Like it is a lot of driving, I have to say. I get motion sick very easily, so I was a little bit scared for that, but honestly I took so much motion sickness medicine that I was fine. But you do have to know that you're going to be in a car a lot and the roads are obviously not very good. But basically starting off with day 1 you go to the waterfalls and they pick you up at 6 a.m. You drive to the you drive to Mador Hostel first and you get some breakfast, then you drive to the waterfalls and have like the whole tour there, and then basically after that you go back into the van and drive straight to Bromo. On the way there we stopped at this supermarket like next to the road because they mentioned this is the snacks that I was talking about, because the next day you would go to Bromo and the day after Ijen, but basically you have to leave in like the middle of the night. And since they do provide breakfast, lunch and dinner, it's not enough you wake up at 1 a.m. and you don't have breakfast until like 8, because honestly for Bromo it wasn't as much of a hike, so activity wise you wouldn't necessarily need it for Bromo. But for Bromo you have to wait quite a long time. Like you literally sit there from like 4 to 6 a.m. just waiting, and obviously if you're waiting you usually get bored and get hungry. So I would recommend getting some snacks. So we stopped at the supermarket and we got some snacks, and our driver came and he was like, that's not enough, you have to get more. They do really want to make sure that you're like okay and you have enough food and water. They keep providing water. At first we were like, do we really need all those snacks? And I would actually recommend it. Like it was just nice. I have to admit the pre-packed things in the supermarket in Indonesia, they don't really have a lot of fresh things, but we got like pre-packed croissants because we felt like we needed like something like that. Like you don't want to get just like sweets, so we got some pre-packed croissants which weren't very good but they did the job. And then we got some nut bars and cookies. That's mostly what we got. And we also got these crisps sometimes for like in the van, because in Indonesia in the supermarket, they have these like nori seaweed crisps, which are so good, and I feel like we don't have them here, so we literally got those like too many times. But anyways, those are mostly the snacks that we got. I feel like you just have to kind of figure out what you need, because the next day for Ijen we did get the croissants again, even though they weren't that good. I feel like I wouldn't survive if I would just eat cookies, you know? So it just depends on what you want to eat and how your body will react to those things, because I feel like if I eat too much sugar, I will just collapse instead of actually feel like fueled. So obviously, as I said, those snacks aren't included in the price, but pricing in Indonesia is crazy, and this is literally gonna cost you like €5. So then you get to Bromo for the first homestay, and it was a really fun evening because we got dinner and then they had these like marshmallows and karaoke and just some beers. But obviously you can't really stay out very long because you have to wake up at like 1 a.m. and obviously you do want to get some proper sleep. Not that I got proper sleep because I just could not fall asleep, but it is nice to kind of get to know your group a little bit, because the next day I feel like we were all just a little bit closer that you can properly speak, because the first day everyone is a little bit distant, and I don't know, the second day people would actually speak to each other so much more, which was really nice. So for Bromo, they pick you up in these jeeps and we drive to Bromo, obviously, but when we got back we would have to leave immediately, so you have to get your stuff like packed also before you leave at 2 a.m. basically. So that's why I would recommend just not really unpacking a lot, so you just have everything that you need like on the top of your backpack, so you don't need to get everything out every time. So we leave in the jeeps and it was like a 45-minute ride or something, and we rented these jackets for like not even a few euros I think, which was quite nice because it does get really cold at the top. So then you get there at like 4 a.m. They give you fried banana and coffee first, but you just have to wait there basically until the sunrise, which is quite long, but you kind of have to, because otherwise you will not have like a proper spot to watch the sunrise. But basically we did just walk around a little bit when the sunrise was starting to kind of just get like a better view, I feel like. And we were so insanely lucky with the weather. I was so scared that it would be cloudy and that we wouldn't even be able to see Bromo. Like that was like my one scare for this trip, because every time I would go to Jopen I was like, oh my god, look at the weather, I really hope it's gonna be better, because I like all 3 days we were so lucky, like we got the perfect weather. And every time I would go to Jopen I was like, imagine doing this tour and just not seeing it. Like I would feel like that would be such a waste. So we were incredibly lucky, and I'm so grateful, because I was so nervous for that. So anyways, sunset on Bromo was insane. Like that was so freaking beautiful. And then we went down and you get into the jeep again and you go to the crater. To be fair, I didn't even know we were going to the crater, but it was fun. It was just really warm. Like on Bromo it's very cold, but then you go down to the crater and it's literally like 30 degrees, and then you have to walk up the crater, which was like 200 steps I think he said, and it's really hot. Like that is also in direct sunlight. It was extremely hot, and I kind of hated it because they have these like horses and they just bring people up, and I'm like, if you can't walk well, obviously if you have a good reason, don't listen to this, but if you are just lazy, don't go to a place like this if you're not going to be brave enough to walk up. Like honestly, frustration for me. I just hate seeing those horses in this weather, and then one of these horses is just painted as if he's a unicorn, and I'm like, leave those horses alone. Like that is, sorry, little frustration. But other than that, the crater was cool. Not one of my favorite things. I like the sunrise view a lot more, but it's cool to see the crater, and I don't really have a strong opinion about the crater, to be fair. And then you get back into the jeep, drive to the homestay, you pick up your bag, and then obviously you drive some more because we have to drive to Ijen. I think the drive to Ijen wasn't that bad. I think it was like 4 hours or something, maybe even less. And then we got there and it was a hotel, and it was actually quite nice. I didn't expect the hotel to be so nice. And then we just quickly stopped by the supermarket to get some more snacks and had dinner at like 5, I think, because they really pushed you to kind of go to bed at like 6, because for Ijen we left at midnight. So obviously you have to wake up at like 11:30 depending on how much time you need when you wake up. But honestly, it's so weird like having to go to sleep at like 6 p.m. You are very tired, but you're also kind of running on adrenaline quite a lot. So we just, with our group, we had a few people that wanted to just grab a beer like in the hotel lobby. So we just sat there, had a beer, and then our drivers passed by and they were like, you have to go to sleep. And then we were like, yeah, but you have to go to sleep because you're the one who needs to be driving. And it was just funny, but we did go to sleep at like 7:30ish, I think. I got very scared the day before Ijen because my TikTok algorithm obviously sent me into this spiral where everyone was saying, oh, Ijen's the worst thing I've ever done. It's so scary. It's so hard. And I was like, oh my god. I just got like a little bit nervous, which honestly was not necessary. I can't say it's like super easy. Like it obviously is a hike. It's not as scary as people were making it out to be. So we got to the base camp for Ijen and they of course give you fried banana again, and honestly it was really good. I didn't expect to like it as much, but I quite really enjoyed it actually, especially as a little midnight snack. That was quite good. And they were just selling like so many things, like scarves, gloves, everything like that. I feel like for Bromo we were really cold because you're just not moving, and I feel like for Ijen, I mean, it was kind of controversial because it was really cold at base camp, but we just felt like once you start doing the actual hike you're obviously moving. Like once you get warm if you start moving. So we didn't really end up getting like jackets or anything because we just felt like that wasn't necessary. And let me just say, we started the hike and after like 10 minutes I was in a tank top because it was so warm. Like yes, for Ijen, once you get to like the lake and once you're like waiting a little bit, it might get a little bit more chilly, but overall you don't need like very big jackets or anything like that because as long as you're moving you will get very warm. So Ijen was a very steep hill basically. The hike up is literally just a hill, but some parts are very steep and they're not as, well, they're not as steep, but they're not as bad as I was thinking they would be because of all the TikToks I saw. Please do not ever like just believe the TikToks you see because it was not as bad as they were making it out to be, but it was very steep, and as long as you have like a little bit of a fitness level you will be able to do that, don't worry. And we had my next frustration, like the day before at Bromo it was the horses, and at Ijen it's the fact that they have these like baskets where people can sit in and then workers have to literally drag you up the hill, like those steep hills. They have to drag you up there. Like if you want to do a hike, do the actual hike. Like don't have people have to drag you up. Like I just cannot unsee how selfish that is, and I just hate it. Absolutely hated seeing that. I felt so bad for those workers, and I don't know, it just frustrates me a lot. I just feel like if you can't do a hike, don't do a hike, because once you're up the hill you still have to do the hike down, which is, I feel like, more of the hard part. Well, I actually might have found it easier than the hill maybe, because I just really don't like walking uphill, so maybe that's why I didn't really like the first part. But for the second part, basically once you're at the top you walk down to, is that also called a crater? I'm not sure if it's called a crater, but you walk down to the lake, which is kind of what Ijen is famous for, like the lake and the blue lava. And they didn't have the actual blue lava now. I don't even remember why, but they did make it so you could see the blue lava, but it was not like the actual real blue lava. But basically the path to the lake is just like rocks, and it can be a little bit scary sometimes because obviously some of the rocks can be loose, and I really like this because I just thought it looked so cool to be hiking down a few rocks in the middle of the night. And as long as you just pay attention to where you're walking and to each other, you will be fine. Like this wasn't as difficult, I feel like. Honestly, for me it was mostly fun. I really liked it, but once you get down there you have to put on your gas mask because what they get from this volcano is silver. I don't know how to explain what this is, but basically the smell and like the whole gas inhaling is really bad, and I was a little bit scared for this because I also have contacts, so I was kind of scared for my eyes because sometimes you would get this like wave of the silver, and honestly at some point I was standing like this so I didn't get it in my face, but it was here, and he was like, oh my god, close your eyes, because it was so bad for like your eyes. And you obviously down there had to wear the gas mask, and I feel like with this we were also quite lucky with the weather because once you get to the point where they show you the blue lava you have the opportunity to either go back up and watch the sunrise from like the top, or you can go down even more to, I think they did call it a crater actually, but you can go down even more to the crater, and that's where the actual lake is. Once you get down more, and like the smell and the gas get a lot worse, and that's where I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, because I was obviously really scared for my eyes, and I just really, sometimes you get this feeling where you can breathe kind of, which I honestly just don't like at all. I don't think anyone likes that, but I was just, I don't know, I was just a little bit nervous for that. But I feel like because of the weather, like the way the wind was coming, it wasn't as bad. Like we didn't really get that much like actually into our faces, I feel like. And honestly, if the wind was like the other way around or something, I would have probably not went down to the crater, because that smell, like this is the worst thing I've ever smelled in my entire life, because it just, I can still smell it in some of my clothes even though I've washed them like 3 or 4 times already. It's just so strong, and just a feeling of not being able to breathe. Anyhow, we were so lucky that it wasn't as bad. So once you get down to the lake, you can take some photos. And funny thing, well, this is not funny, but there are still actual miners at work. And when we're doing this for a hike where we have to literally, well, you don't have to recover as much, but obviously you're tired after this hike, these miners have to walk up and down like so many times with literally like 60 kilos of silver on their backs, and like they barely make any money out of that. And I feel like this trip also kind of really opened some kind of perspective about how lucky we are to live in a country like this, obviously. And like money wise, like whenever we would buy something for like 100k, it would not even be €5, and we would just keep joking about it, obviously. And it's not that big of a deal right now, because obviously this has been like this in forever, but I feel like it's such like an eye-opener. I feel like also every time we would tip like our driver or like surf lessons or anything like that, they would be so grateful. I don't know, I'm not gonna go into that too much right now, but I feel like it was like an eye-opener and just a perspective thing about how lucky we should be to live in a country like this, like have an actual roof over our heads and being able to make money and being able to be in like good health and everything like that. I feel like especially with those miners and everything, I just felt so bad. And then we would ask our tour guide like, why are they doing this? And then he would be like, oh, they feel like they don't have a choice, they can't do anything else, and they're not even wearing like gas masks, like they're just doing it. And I was already dying with my gas mask on. Like, I don't know, just seeing those miners at work just felt super crazy. I don't know, I feel like Ijen was such a highlight for me this trip. Like, it was just so cool to experience, and it was just so beautiful. I did feel like the walk down, like when you finish at the lake, you walk up, which is not too bad, because going down the rocks was harder than going up the rocks, but then you also have to walk down like the steep mountain again. I don't know why, but just going down was pretty hard, and it just took so much longer than we thought it would. But once you get down, they give you breakfast again, and then you go into the van and drive to the harbor for I think 2 hours, get the ferry, which was not very long, and then you have to drive to Ubud, which is like another 8 hours in the van. So as I said, you do spend a lot of time in the car. But if you would want to do this and also still go to like Bali, you would obviously still have to like somehow drive or like get transportation everywhere. So I'm very happy that we did this tour, and I would highly recommend it to book it through Mother Hostel, because honestly they just organized everything so well. People were really kind and everything was just really good, and I would definitely put Java on your bucket list, especially if you are already going to Indonesia. Please do not just go to Bali. Java was super cool, and I also loved Lombok. You will have to wait for the vlogs, but I really did not really like Bali, and I feel like a lot of people, if they go to Indonesia, they only go to Bali. But why do you not just go to Java? Because Java was so pretty. And if I'd have to choose my favorite, I can't really choose, because I would say Bromo was insanely beautiful, like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. But then Ijen was also beautiful, and just one of the coolest things I've ever done, like just climbing like an active volcano with like the silver. Even though I feel like I couldn't breathe at some point and I was just scared, that made it even like cooler. I feel like, I don't know, I just loved it so much, and I just felt like I had to kind of update you guys by chatting about it, because I feel like I haven't really recorded a lot. Also, this entire trip I didn't really want to focus on filming, because obviously this trip is also my holiday, so I just kind of wanted to soak up like all the quality time on this trip and just like seeing everything and everything like that, and didn't want to be just focused on filming everything, so I filmed where I could or when I wanted to film, and that's about it. So that's why I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update if it wasn't clear by all of the footage. And that also puts an end to my Abba vlog. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Please stay tuned for the rest of our trip because there are a few more vlogs coming. I'm very excited to edit all of them, and I just really hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!